it's difficult to connect dots. Everybody's going to learn differently and understand differently. So going from something written with pictures and maybe some arrows or somebody, role modeling in a picture, something gets lost.
Today, I'm excited to welcome David Larsen to the show. Now, David was a real treat to talk with. He, as he'll explain, he's kind of got an engineering background, but actually after the interview was over and we had stopped the recording, we were chatting a little bit more, and I told him how great of a job he did, and that I personally felt like, we've talked a little bit about over the last few episodes about the difference between ethos and logos and pathos, and ethos and logos in particular is kind of like engineers, they live in logos, which is logic and spreadsheets and facts and data and graphs, and but that pathos, that emotional side, it's not always an engineer's strong point. But I got to tell you, David is one of those guys where, I know he can throw down on a logo side, and he's got all the credibility for ethos, but he also has pathos. You can tell this guy genuinely cares about what he's doing, and it really, really came through. So anyhow, he's got a manufacturing background, but he transitioned to healthcare, and we also talk about a case study that he wrote. But honestly, my favorite part was towards the end. I just started kind of doing some rapid fire questions at him, and I asked him a question that I don't think I've ever asked anybody before on the show, and that was what he was grateful for. And that was really probably the highlight of the episode for me, was his answer to that. So anyhow, be sure to listen towards the end. Good stuff. Show notes for this episode, which will include links to the various articles that David's written, and we talk a little bit about on the podcast. We'll link to all those. And so that's gembapodcast.com. Just look for episode 362. Again, gembapodcast.com, and look for episode 362. Also, during the episode, we kind of joke at the end that David's going to come on and write a guest article for our Gemba Academy's blog. And sometimes the blog is, a lot of people subscribe to it, and a lot of people read it, but not everybody knows we actually do it. Believe it or not everybody knows we do a podcast. So something we got to do a better job of. But every Monday and every Friday, we release a blog article. John Miller writes every Monday, and then me, Kevin Meyer, and Steve Kane kind of rotate Fridays. So there's a couple new blog articles going up every week. So for that, just go to blog.gembaacademy.com, and you can there's thousands of blog articles in there, so lots of content in there, and it's all free. So be sure to check those out as well, and subscribe if you're not already there. Okay, enough from me. Let's get to the show. David, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going great, Ron. So great to connect with you.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for coming on. So where are you calling in from?
It's a pleasure to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm calling in from sunny Southwest Florida, my home here in Port Charlotte.
Nice. Well, David, I know you've listened to the show a few times, and we do like to get going with a quote. So do you have one?
I do. Ron, a quote that resonates with me because of a focus on and respect for people is one that I've heard used many times in messages coming from a pulpit, and I believe it's attributed to Teddy Roosevelt. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
What's that mean to you?
For me, it really drives my approach. And it almost takes me back to, one of my favorite mistakes that I learned from as a junior engineer. But especially with manufacturing, talking to operators, they know, they see an engineer coming from a mile away. and it's not about, me being the engineer and talking to an operator. I want to talk to the expert. I want to put my audience at ease that I'm not here to beat them up. I'm here to support them and support the process.
Yeah.
So telling them, how educated I am means nothing. Mm-hmm. But coming along and chit-chatting about college football for 5 minutes, and then when they tell me, all right, Dave, I know you're here to talk about work. What you got? To me, I've won over my customer. My customer's the operator. My customer's an area business manager. My customer's an operational leader. Mm-hmm. So to me, that quote speaks to how I have to show up and how I have to approach frontline team members.
Who's your college football team?
Oh, my alma mater is the University of Florida.
Oh boy. Oh boy. So I grew up in Ohio, so you can guess where my allegiance, not the Ohio Bobcats, whether or not. So we had a rough go of it a few weeks ago there against old Alabama, but whatever, it is what it is.
For
So.
sure. Well, you're a tough nut to crack, I'll tell you that.
There, bada bing, bada bing. I like it. Yeah. Elaine Crescione, who works for Gamble Academy, she's her husband's a Florida alum, and so they're big, Gator fans, obviously, and we're big Urban Meyer fans, but now it's like the man whose name shall not be said in this house, After
I can track with that.
Yeah.
I can track with that 100%.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Although my son, his dad's a huge Buckeye fan, so my son has grown up being an Ohio State fan, and so he's a rabid Ohio State fan. But I'll tell you who is his favorite player of all time is actually Mr. Tebow. So yeah, oh my gosh,
go.
every book that Tebow's written, my son's read, and we just watched the little horribly produced documentary the other. I was like, that's really bad quality, but cool story. Yeah.
I can track with that. Many a times I can think of using Tebow as an icebreaker, just something to talk about at that time. Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. Oh, hey, David, so tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us how you first got introduced to all this continuous improvement stuff that we all love, and then tell us what you're up to these days.
Absolutely. So I'm an operational excellence professional. I started out 21 years ago as a process engineer at a Department of Energy managed facility. I earned some certifications along the way, planning and scheduling professional and project management professional certifications, which opened a door for me to go into project management. And then I changed organizations, taking me back into a process and quality engineering role where I achieved my Lean Six Sigma black belt with Bridgestone Americas.
Nice.
And so currently I serve as a performance excellence specialist at a healthcare system in Southwest Florida.
Got it. So I understand from chatting with you a little earlier that you haven't always been in healthcare. That used to be old manufacturing guy running around. So talk about that. Like, what was that? What's that all about as far as going from manufacturing to healthcare, and how did it go?
It's been a great opportunity, and it kind of leads back to the quote that resonates with me. So back in fall of 2019. A dream opportunity presented itself to me, kind of a confluence of professional and personal desires. Through life, I can recall several prominent events where healthcare heroes made an impact for members of my family. And so those events very much inspired to me when I was approached with an opportunity to join a healthcare organization in a role as a performance excellence specialist. You only know what you know where you are sometimes, and getting the chance to share my skill set, I see it as a role and a means of personal contribution, giving back to healthcare heroes. It really is an honor. So, I was recruited by my organization out of where I was at in manufacturing, and I grew up in Florida, Gulf Coast. First job out of college, it took me at least to the Southeast, getting to stay close to family. And I tried several times through the years to find an opportunity to come and be closer to home. It just never presented itself. But through professional development, developing myself and developing a skill set, it was so neat. Neat's not even a word. It's mind blowing to be recruited into healthcare and to be a non-clinical person, to come alongside physicians, clinicians, nurses, and they want to hear from me, and my voice is value added because of my approach. It's very humbling.
Mm-hmm. Was it scary?
I didn't find it to be scary personally. Especially coming from manufacturing, where if you step into a line of fire of the wrong kind of equipment, it's just as life threatening as it is within healthcare. But with the approaches that they take and the personal protective equipment, and really, from my perspective, I'm coming in contact with frontline leaders, not so much patient care
Yeah.
directly.
Yeah.
So from my personal comfort level, I was not scared. It was the onboarding process was fun, and we can talk about that later.
Mm-hmm.
But the transition from daily face-to-face work to remote work was the most scary to me, because at the end of the day, I'm a little bit of a people person, and
Yeah.
I crave that collaborative. Let's sit around a whiteboard and write some things out and brainstorm
Mm-hmm.
in that remote environment. It's a little bit of a challenge to overcome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess what I meant by scary was, and you answered it, was like, not necessarily, oh, you scared because of healthcare and seeing, you know, patients, but it would be more this industry change. You're so used to one thing, manufacturing, and then all of a sudden the things that add value are patients moving through a hospital versus pieces of metal or, you know, whatever it might be. So, you know, I've known a lot of people that have made the jump, you know, from manufacturing to healthcare. It's going to be interesting because lean is becoming so prevalent now in healthcare that it's going to be interesting. I would say probably in another 5 to 10 years, I bet you it's going to be the reverse. There's going to be people who are, you know, kind of grew up in healthcare and are like, hey man, I want to try this manufacturing thing, you know, and they jump into that way. And they bring their lean experience from healthcare and go into manufacturing. That'll be a fun podcast to have when that does happen.
I would agree with that. I would listen.
Yeah. Yeah. So, listen, I understand that you've written a case study. What's that all about?
I have written a case study. So during 2020, having a little bit of time to reflect, personal time, along with professional, I looked back on an experience while I was still with Bridgestone supporting my facility. And I took the opportunity to write down a great experience as a black belt coach, supporting someone who is going after and pursuing their yellow belt certification. It was on a safety improvement project.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed the time supporting the frontline team and putting thought into, you know, words. I found value with the exercise of organizing myself from thought and concept into a vehicle to be able to share with others, to obtain professional credibility with the exercise of writing. You know, there's a part of me that derives satisfaction from functioning as a mentor partner, to be able to inspire someone through a conversation, share a nugget, and to be able to see that light bulb ignite for someone, to me, is very satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
And so through the use of writing, I used it as a means of reflection. And so the case study, as an example, it was something that went well. The team learned through the project, and it also gave me a chance to see, you know, what I do different in a coaching mentoring session next time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what motivated you? I mean, to really want to write? I mean, it's a lot of work, you know, to to do something like that.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't see it as work. I saw it as a little bit of a mental exercise. I saw it as a fun opportunity to collaborate with a personal friend of mine through it. And I saw it as a way of developing, telling a story. And it's funny to say telling a story about work, but in order to validate that it's more than just credentials and the pursuit of gaining recognition, but the exercise of putting thought to paper,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that you can convey it to others. That's what we do when we facilitate a session, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's more than words, it's visual management. So through the thought of writing an article, I have to be able to concisely communicate my thought. So if you pick up an article and you read it, does the thought come across?
Mm-hmm.
To have support from an editor, I don't know if you'll allow, but my case study I had published through i6sigma.com.
Yeah.
And the editor there was very supportive and very helpful, asking leading questions to allow me to improve my article as I submitted it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very collaborative,
Mm-hmm.
and helpful in that way. So, I didn't see it as work. I saw it as mapping out a new process for myself, a means of sharing learnings with others outside of a personal or professional organization. Somebody that I'll never be able to have contact with, but they can reach out to me, and we can have a conversation about, hey, I read your case study.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working here. And so it's also a means of networking. Thinking about it now, it's just another way to reach out and connect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We'll I'm sure we'll link to the case study, but give us the highlights, I'm actually pulling it up right now on Six Sigma, looking for it here. Just, I cover the highlights. Is improved
Absolutely.
rescue time from a boiling mill machine? Is it that one?
Yeah, it's a Bolling mill. So it's a type of calendar mill. So a calendar mill, series of rollers. So you're loading in some bulk rubber, and through the series of rollers, you're going to mill that rubber down to a specific thickness.
Mm-hmm.
And this Bolling mill, this calendar was within a quality lab, and so there was a team member that transitioned from a production area into the lab. She had a high acumen, pursuing her yellow belt certification within the organization. And she approached me. She's like, I have finally a project opportunity. I'm like, okay, lay it on me. And the project was, she was becoming familiar with the standards and the processes of the laboratory that she was joining. And she looked at the standards, looked at the tools in place, and on a high level, she was identifying some gaps. She said, I'd like to scope this. Do you think we could run a drill? We approached safety team members that we could run a drill. We could do a video recording to collect some data, because thankfully we haven't had to put these working standards into direct practice to save or rescue a team member within any time soon. So that's a good thing. But she saw an opportunity looking at the standards to close some gaps. So we wanted to collect some data. And when we performed the drill, the baseline performance, performing to the standards specifically and going through the motions of where are the tools at. So we recorded a baseline of 7.14 minutes to rescue a team member and attend to them before the safety team came to lead them off a stretcher. Through the improvement project, they were able to come and realize a reduction of 35%. So that gets it down to performing another drill to the new standard, getting to 4.59 minutes. And many countermeasures were put into place. Some great shadowboarding tools were used and put into place to be able to efficiently find the tools needed to perform the rescue and support that team member should they ever be put into that bad position.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, like, how did you simulate it? You mentioned like a drill, but like what did you do? Like, because obviously you don't want to put anybody in harm's way. So, how were you able to validate the current condition and then the improved condition?
So it was very much a role play drill situation where the mill machine itself was shut down, secured, locked out, tagged out 100%.
Yeah.
But simulating a person, kind of standing in front there where you might have had a hand or a glove getting in a pinch point situation, and then having the supporting team members that are in the lab and really going through a full-on role play drill scenario, everybody going and grabbing those rescue tools and all right, and going through, even though the machine is already set up as safe, what actions would you do? What wrenches would you turn to get the team member out of that pinch point situation? And really going through methodically, how would I perform those tasks? And there was some confusion recorded in those videos that I don't know what my role is, or a delay in making a phone call, and sitting idly back and really allowing everybody to just perform the role and not coach in the moment. That was hard for us not to, encourage people on, but allowing the role play to play out, and that provided that baseline data.
Yeah. I'm skimming through the article here, and one of the things that in the improvement actions prepared, one of the bullet points here, the last one was he converted written standard work to video standard work. That's super interesting to me. I've seen that a number of times be very successful. I think one of the first times that I saw it was at FastCap, our friends over there at FastCap, Paul Akers and the guys, and they had this really huge printer, and they did all this pretty sophisticated Kanban printing kind of things, they're and lots of different labels being printed out, and to kind of he handed me the instructions, because here's the written instructions, and I'm like, okay, it's gonna take me a while. He goes, or you can press play on this iPad that's sitting right here. And I pressed play, and then Graham walked us through it in like 2 or 3 minutes, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got it, So so talk a little bit about the difference between that written standard work and the video standard work. How did that go?
I thought it went very well. This is something that Bridgestone was really transitioning to, and so it was a matter of great timing, at least for this particular project and example. So, written word and visually managing, it's difficult to connect dots. Everybody's going to learn differently and understand differently. So going from something written with pictures and maybe some arrows or somebody, role modeling in a picture, something what gets lost. It's not a perfect process. With video standard, you get to hone in on that see one, do one, teach one. You get to see some more of that hands-on. So, a new employee, we have a series of videos for you to watch, get more comfortable. Maybe there still may be some quizzing and testing before you actually get hands-on with equipment. But to me, it's that bridging the gap.
Yeah.
It's more than reading. You get to see it performed more clearly, and then you get to have some of that hands-on time. So I think the video standard work really is supportive of those different learners that may not, really connect the dots from written and pictured standards, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm obviously love me some video. I think video is the way of the future, right? No, just kidding. Gamba Academy, shameless plug, right?
Go for
stuff.
it. It's your podcast.
No, it's all good. So, that's really good, man. So I'm going to definitely link to this, to the article, the Six Sigma article, and yeah, shout out to Six Sigma, by the way. I don't go to their website that much anymore, but boy, back in the day when I was first learning, man, Six Sigma was like the place we went to, man, to find information. They just got so much good stuff in there. So they've been a survivor, man, over the years. A lot of websites have come and gone, but they've hung in there and done a great job, those folks. So yeah, well done. So let's talk a little bit about, back to kind of your personal story here. And I like to maybe explore a little bit the organizational, maybe some of the cultural differences that you've experienced really over your career. And so talk a little bit about that, these different places
Sure.
that you've been.
Yeah. Coming from manufacturing and into healthcare, there's what I've been seeing, and it came through and came across even through the interviewing process, that there's a certain inertia in healthcare that is people focused and people centric. There's just such a contrast between industries that I've been a part of, and I think for me, it made the transition just that much easier, because while there are processes, it's still about the people and how you approach the process, you approach the problem solving, the collaborative nature, the culture of the organization specifically that I've joined with, the attitude of the want to continuously improve is there. And it's something that I've observed with previous organizations that I know a previous podcaster, I can't quote the gentleman's name, but maybe it was more of an appearance. than the direct presence of continuous improvement for previous organizations that I've been a part of. And it's discouraging
Yeah.
for someone whose mindset, I'm here to come to work to add value. And so it's really a pleasure to have an organization that the want to continuously improve is there, and it's very people centered. And it's likely because of the a part of the business, whether it's the healthcare heroes or whether it's patients, that the process is focused on the people.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's a dream come true to be able to support the organization I'm a part of.
Yeah. I think you were probably talking about episode 354 with Patrick Adams, avoiding the continuous appearance trap.
Yeah, I listened to that one, and that was a very good message.
Yeah. That's a great one. That's a great one. So you kind of teased us a little bit earlier about an onboarding process that you've gone through, I guess during a pandemic, right? So what was that like?
Well, and that's the part that was scary, right? And it was scary not because of healthcare, but just organizational change.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined in March of 2020. I joined my new organization, and I was literally the last in-person orientation class that occurred, and the organization pivoted rather quickly, and they adapted very quickly to the facilitation model. They needed to go virtual, and it was, again, scary for me personally, but impressive on how they responded, at how, the respect for the people shows through. And my team, I got the chance to work alongside of team members, cautiously, physically distanced. And then when we couldn't be together, it was virtual. And it was, how the flow of information changes.
Mm-hmm.
It was, again, being a hands-on in-person kind of a guy, it went very well. It was smooth operations. And it was a really great transition. A lot of changes occur within an organization during such times when operations are changed, but it was a good experience, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So question, I've kind of gone back into the archives a little bit in some of these recent episodes and kind of asking some questions that we used to ask in the past that we kind of gotten away from, but I come to realize I really missed those questions. So I think I'm going to start reviving some of them. And one of my favorite ones is, if you think back to, if you could go back and speak to David, yourself, present day David, could go talk back to David really on that kind of that very beginning of that continuous improvement journey. Like if there was any particular advice that you could give yourself, what would it be?
Yeah. It's got to be voice of the customer. I grew up in a very much blue collar family, first out of my family to get to go to college. So no pressure there. It was, high school was great. College was challenged, and even being far away from family. But in school, I don't feel like I recall, listening that customer voice. And I think I alluded to it, and it's a future article I'm considering developing, but it's that voice of the customer. Favorite mistake I learned from as a young junior engineer is an opportunity to improve a chemical, a feed batch chemical system. And I was so excited at the opportunity to continuously improve this process that I didn't consult the frontline team at all. I didn't consult the end user at all. I just went on designing and speccing out a gorgeous auger-fed system that, well, I didn't even consult supply chain, that we'd have to change over how we acquire this solid chemical that we dilute up with water to make the solution. I was all gung ho that you have to analyze your stakeholders. You have to meet the customer's needs. You have to listen. You have to add value. And that would definitely be the first thing I'd go back and talk to my younger self about. Like, you got a lot of head knowledge, boy, but slow down
Yeah.
and listen to who you're serving. That servant leadership attitude. I made some mistakes along the way, and it never impacted me professionally, but it all these years later, 20 years later, I don't forget it. It's now become my favorite mistake versus kicking myself over it. Why didn't I ask?
Mm-hmm.
That was an easy one.
Yeah. Good. Something that I've personally been trying to do a lot of, always tried to, but sometimes I'm not so good at it, especially, over the last year or so, it's been pretty rotten. Right. So, but trying to really think about gratitude and the things that I'm grateful for and my life and whatnot. So I'm curious to hear, if you don't mind me, sort of a personal question, but like, what are you grateful for? And, feel free to keep it, professionally speaking, or it could be anything. Then I'm just curious, like, what are you grateful for?
Boy, I'm grateful for a supportive family, especially with a transition to up and move. I have, 2 younger kiddos and an awesome wife and go getting choked up on you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
But, it's something that I've focused very much on family, and I get to have a great professional career. I never along the way put career necessarily first, and so I'm very thankful for a great support system, and I'm thankful for an opportunity to serve others. That's it cannot go personal for me. Because of how I've made choices and aligned things in my life. I look back at leaders, and I ask thought-provoking questions to myself on why not that direction, why not there, and I don't have those opportunities as of yet to ask certain thought-provoking questions. But I don't know about sacrifice that others make to pursue roles and positions, but I'm thankful and grateful that I never sacrificed family in professional related pursuits.
Love it. Love it. Fantastic.
That makes sense.
No, it does. Totally. I mean, it's pretty clear what your why is, right? And that's just something that we always try to get folks to really understand. It's like, what's your why? Like, why are you doing this? What's your purpose? What's your cause? What are you fighting for here? Right. So, and that why can be professionally, but also it ultimately comes back to personal, right? Like, what's your personal why?
I think so. And I love how you asked that. The why, the driver, only within the last year or so did I find Simon Sinek, and listening to some of his TED Talks videos, and I try to approach the work. I look for the opportunity to share the why when it comes to a project or an improvement initiative, to make sure that the team that's involved that they understand the why. Yeah. And it's not me conveying the why, but pulling it out of, as a frontline team, frontline leader, what is the why for this project? I believe I align with, you share the why, everybody starts getting on that same page.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this is a long time ago. It was back in 2016, but Mr. Sinek came on to the Gemba Academy podcast in episode 76. So we weren't even triple digits back then, 76. It was October 3rd, 2016. So yeah, if you haven't listened to that one, go back and check that one out. That you talk about, being a little bit nervous as an interviewer, calling up Mr. Simon Sinek. I was a little nervous, man. He actually yelled at me at one point during it as well, not in a bad way, but he got all fired up on me. Yeah. So I have to listen to that one. That was a fun episode.
I will.
Yeah.
I have not gone that far back in the archive.
Yeah, 76.
So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, go check it out. Check it out. Yeah, good stuff, man. All right. Well, hey, Dave, this has been super fun, man. I really appreciate your, you can just hear, authenticity in your voice, and that you really care, and that you really, you're in it for the right reason. So keep up the great work, and thanks for coming on. And why don't you maybe wrap things up with, I don't know, some final words of wisdom for the folks listening, and then for sure tell folks how they can connect with you, social media, whatever.
Absolutely. For those who bantered around the idea of considering being a published writer, you can do it if you choose to pursue it. You got to determine the value for yourself, though. Consider creating a personal PDCA to make the effort visual, set a timeline and a target and a goal. I'm connected and active on LinkedIn. You can look me up under David Larsen. Larsen spelled Larsen. And yeah, feel free to reach out, interact with me on i6sigma.com.
Mm-hmm.
I have my article, my case study there. And I also have articles available for read on Six Sigma Daily.
Yeah, we'll put we'll link to all your articles on in the show notes. So that's just so folks remember one URL. Go to gembapodcast.com, and then this is episode 362. So we'll link to the i6 Sigma and all the other articles. And David, you need to write a guest blog for Gemba Academy's blog, man. Come on. I know
I would love that. Now that I have the invite, I'm there.
That's it, man. Now you're committed. Everybody's listening. So I want everybody to check back with David in like 6 months and make sure that he's held up his end of the bargain.
I appreciate the invitation, and it's been a great pleasure today, Ron. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome, man. Take care. Thanks, David. Thanks for listening. Whether you've been on the continuous improvement journey for many years, or perhaps you're just getting started, Gemba Academy is here to support you. And while we're best known for our more than 1,500 Lean and Six Sigma teaching and virtual tour videos, we also have a team of experienced Lean and Six Sigma practitioners available for one-on-one coaching, as well as a variety of Lean and Six Sigma certification options. To learn more and to schedule a demo, head on over to gembaacademy.com.